Hey everybody, Kev Smith here, back to answer your questions. That haunting voice you hear from off camera is Mr. Jason Mewes. Hit me with some questions, Mewes.
This is from Dale Hodge. Do you have a philosophy about editing?
Dale, my philosophy on editing is this. To me, it's better than anything else in the process of filmmaking, with the exception of writing. I'm a writer-director, so I tend to write the script that I'm going to direct, and I take it a step further. I'm a writer-director-editor, so I cut my own shit as well. Now, there's some schools of thought that say, hand your material to an editor separate from the process, separate from your head, because they'll see a movie that you didn't see and find ways into it. Eat my dick. I ain't interested in making somebody else's fucking movie. Now, that's good for some shit. When you're making Dark Knight, you need 19 fucking editors. Or when you're making Avengers, you need 19 editors because there's all this footage coming in at once. Generally, you don't see one editing credit and stuff like that. And also, those are big, massive fucking commercialized movies and whatnot. When you're a writer-director and you're cutting your own stuff, cutting is just an extension of the writing process. And to give up another shot at writing the script, another draft, so to speak, in editing, just to arbitrarily hand it over to somebody else who may see a movie that you never saw, is horseshit, man. If you're a writer-director, I'm not saying it goes for everybody, but if you're a writer-director, letting go of editing is kind of like, I'm gonna have a baby and then I'm gonna give it to somebody else to raise. Man, I'll see it when it's done. Horseshit. Just, you took it that far, keep going, man, because, you know, anybody can cut now. It's all digital. Back in the day, we used to cut on film on a flatbed, Steenbeck, and all this fucking footage hanging all over the place. And when you went through your first pass, you put all the footage in the garbage bags and there's all this work print, all this old work print, and you didn't touch it. So then periodically, you'd come to a moment where they're like, you know, we took Clerks to Sundance. And after Sundance, Harvey Weinstein was like, I'm an old man, it's a young man's movie. Take 10 minutes out. I don't know what 10 minutes to take out, but just take out 10. So me and Moshe had to go find 10 minutes in a 103-minute version of Clerks. And in order to make cuts, of course, you use cut footage to Band-Aid cuts that you've made. If you're taking out, like I'm talking, and if I want to take out this middle thing that I'm saying right here, like I fucked up. Oh, I fucked up. We got to take that part out. Then you cut to somebody else, take out my bad stuff, put in that shot of somebody else going, or some shit like that, and you're off and running and stuff. So when you're doing that and all your footage is in garbage bags, as it was with Clerks, because we'd finished our pass, put everything in the garbage bags, and we were like, we're done. And then we had to go back and maybe look for something to put in there. Suddenly you're looking at all those garbage bags going, the movie's fine, let it rot. But we're in the digital age now, man. Thanks to the Avid, boy, you choices left and right. You would never do that again. I'd never go like, oh, I'm too lazy to go look at the rest of the footage. Because the rest of the footage you can look at probably within 6 minutes if you go through it at a hyper fast speed. See every shot you've ever had. And that's the fun of editing, man. All the bells and whistles of CG and you know, massive sound design, that's all great if you're a fetishist and into that kind of stuff. But editing is where the magic happens. Editing, you can save a picture in editing, a dog shit picture. You can ruin a great picture in editing. You can find a whole different movie in the editing process, or rewrite while you're editing if you're, you know, the writer in the first place, or even if you weren't the writer in the first place. Editing is magical. I would never let that go. And how I do it is very easy. Generally, you know, you're trying to communicate between a writer's script, a director's vision of the film, and what the editor does with all the footage. In my case, I just put that into one individual. That's why I'm so fat they throw me off airplanes. Three guys in one guy. So I like to write, direct, and edit the stuff myself. Not saying you gotta do that, but if you're a writer-director, man, seems silly to me to let go of the editing process. Editing is very easy to learn, particularly if you have the Avid software. Jump on it, you'll be good to go. Edit.
Christian Undouche. How do you avoid getting lost in the process of writing dialogue?
Christian, I can't manage to not get lost in the process of answering a question sometimes. Problem is I induce so much THC that sometimes short-term memory cells just start popping off, and so you'll be standing there talking to somebody and being like, yeah, what was I talking about? Short-term though, long-term is still crisp as a kitten. But for me, it's tough to even start. Like right now, I just got lost. For 1 second, split second, I was like, what were we talking about? In my head. That doesn't happen when you're writing. When you're writing, man, particularly for me, at least with dialogue, that's where it all is. That's the bedrock. That's the foundation. You know, for me, it's all about what's said. It's not about this guy walks into a room, this guy looks menacingly, this chick is mad. That shit, I don't get to that shit till later. I just start writing dialogue. I just go like, what would this motherfucker say to this motherfucker? And I just start trying to have the most ideal conversation that I could imagine, the conversation I would like to have in that situation. So you just start writing your perfect world, your perfect conversation, all dialogue. And then I'll go back and go like, okay, maybe I should put a scene in here. A scene should be around this thing here. If you look at the early stuff, that's all it is, just a bunch of dialogue. Every once in a while something happens, but generally those movies are just excuses for people to sit there and talk to one another. That's why I like podcasting so much, because I was like, you don't need film. We can just sit there and talk to each other. It's even cheaper.
Theodore, you reference a lot of stuff in your movies. Are you afraid that you will push away viewers with references that they might not know about?
Let me tell you, Theodore, it's a good question and one that I've been asked for years. Absolutely. Periodically, if you're going to play a lot of inside baseball, use a lot of terminology that's kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and not in that sexual way, but just like you've heard it before. Well, like, you know, in all our movies, in the early stuff, we would talk about, well, the chick died in the YMCA pool, and everyone that saw Clerks knew who that was. Julie Dwyer, the chick that's referenced, they go to their funeral. Dante Randall go to her funeral in the movie. And then we referenced her in Mallrats and Clerks and stuff. So, you know, when you do that, people that have seen the other stuff get rewarded because they're like, oh my God, he's talking about that thing. People who haven't will look at the other people and hear the laughter, because it's like you'll hear 25, 30, 40, 50% laughter, not the whole room, and wonder what's going on. That to me is cool. I don't give a shit if that alienates people. I love the fact that like this many people out of this many found it funny. Like that's just the way I am. It's certainly not the formula to be rich and successful, because you want to please as many people as you possibly can, the entire audience. But I'm okay pleasing only some of the audience, you know? It's like movies are 90 minutes to 2 hours. You can't have everyone from beginning to end. Sometimes you're gonna have these cats, sometimes these cats, sometimes these cats, sometimes these cats. If you're lucky at the end of the movie, you have everybody. That's what you work up to, man. You work up to getting everybody in the movie. You can't get them from the jump. And guess what? When the credits roll, sometimes you won't get all of them. In fact, most cases, you'll never get all of them. And it's just something you gotta kind of live with. But don't worry about alienating people who don't understand your stuff or too inside. No, that's part of the fun of it, man. If you're into that kind of thing. If you're one of these cats that's like, I just want mainstream domination, I want internal love from everybody, then make them make your films as accessible as possible. You know, always have scenes in there where some guy's like, I don't understand. And then another guy's like, well, it's this simple. And they explain the plot every 5 minutes. That way, everyone will always be there with you. But if you're into doing stuff where you're like, hey man, it's its own reward. If you're smart enough to keep up with it, you're gonna enjoy it on a whole different level, then you could work for those cats as well. That's who I like to work for.
Lucas Alexander, how much knowledge of technical camera work and VFX is needed for a director?
Lucas, you don't need any knowledge of any technical camera work or VFX to be a director. I've been doing it nearly 20 years. I still don't know how any of this stuff works. In fact, don't even know what VFX means. I'm lost. Very confused, but I'm gonna come off like an old elder statesman and say, no, you don't need any knowledge of that. Have no idea what that means. Don't know how the camera works to this day. I look at it, it frightens me. It always looks like an alien coming out of a ship, but I don't know how it works. I understand there used to be film, now there's not film, now it's just digital imagery. Thank God I didn't learn anything about film cameras, because they're gone. Now it's all about digital. Now I can ignore this medium as well and not understand how this camera works.
This is from Christopher Kahn. Kevin, when you first started, what kept you motivated to write and direct, even at your most dire times?
Let me tell you, Chris, it's always dire in life. Life is a constant dire situation. You know why? Because you wake up and you don't know if you're gonna die. We're all born to die, and we don't know when. They don't give us expiration dates. So life is constantly dire, man, when you really think about it. Sometimes you wake up like, oh, what am I gonna do today? And you have that moment of thinking, you're like, I'm gonna die one day. So life represents nothing but nonstop dire situations. Based on that, I would say you've got to learn not so much to how to make a movie in life, but you got to learn how to navigate life in all its dire circumstances and still find a little time to live for yourself. You can't live in fear constantly, like, am I going to die? Yes, you're going to die. But do a lot of shit before you die, man, and that'll help you kind of get there, knowing, you know, don't worry about the circumstances that might keep you from doing something. This is the thing you always got to remember. When you sit there and go like, fiddlesticks, applesauce, nobody will let me make a movie. Horseshit. Think about this, man. In order for you to get here, to this plane of existence, this planet to be born, you had to beat out billions of fucking sperm in a race for life or death. Everyone else died and you lived and then you made it here. So if you could do that, you can overcome any odds whatsoever. You could certainly make a fucking movie. You beat billions of sperm to an egg to become you. And you're gonna sit there and bitch about like, what do I do if I can't get going in life? What if I can't make my movie? Oh, come on, motherfucker. Snap out of it. If you can make yourself a human being, you can easily make a movie. Movies are easy. Making movies and getting movies seen, very easy. Pull-ups, impossible. That's what I found. Only pull-ups are hard. So don't get distracted by the shit that like pulls you off your trail, man, where people are like, oh, you're no good at this, or somebody's like, oh, it's not the way I see it, or nobody wants to give you money for it. Just keep going. You'll find your own money. We live in an age now where it's like you don't even need somebody else, a studio, to be like, here's your golden check. Good old Amanda Palmer, man, she just financed a whole album on Kickstarter, a studio album, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I'm not saying we could all be Amanda Palmer. Naturally, she had, a head start in front of a bunch of people, just like I have a head start in front of a bunch of people. But it doesn't mean that you can't do it. Don't be one of those cats that goes like, we did this Red State tour. Bunch of cats were like, before we did the tour, it'll never work, he's fucking nuts. And then they're idiots. So it did work, and it was awesome because you got to watch a bunch of people be like, and instead of going like, oh, we were wrong, instead they followed up with, well, it only works because he's Kevin Smith. Which is it, motherfucker? Am I stupid and I can't do anything? Or am I only a magician because I've been touched and fucking dipped into a fountain of Kevin Smithian or something? It's ridiculous. There'll always be people out there telling you, you can't, you don't, this is no good. You should be like this person. Fuck all that noise. Stick close to yourself. Be your fucking self, man. Sing to your art, for heaven's sakes. Don't sing to somebody else's art. There are plenty of people out there to make their movie. You go make your movie. There it is, man. I've answered a bunch of questions. Come back next time. We'll do some more. I want to hear what's on your mind. You'll hear what's on mine. Not much, obviously. But thanks to the good folks at Avid for hosting this little Q&A, man. Bye, Avid.